I'm glad you asked me, Karan. I must express a certain amount of surprise because he's supposed to be one of those people with a good image in Delhi, and this is a clear divestiture and demotion. There is no clear reason emerging, but what you have just mentioned has been talked about not only the last 2 or 3 days but earlier as well. And I hope to God that is not the reason, because that is clearly a public interest stand he would be taking. And if that is linked to the Gujarat reason you mentioned, it would be something very serious.
Okay.
I don't have any credible evidence to go on that, but certainly this is what is being heard because A, in Delhi and with the Delhi elections, and B, with his relatively good image, it's clearly a surprise move.
Okay. Let me bring in Siddharthnath Singh at that point. There's a certain amount of concern, Mr. Siddharthnath Singh, that in fact Harshvardhan has been moved for what one might call less than acceptable reasons. That he took a strong anti-tobacco line and the tobacco lobby, which is strong in Gujarat, objected. They had a word with Mr. Modi, and a man doing a good job was moved out for the wrong reason. How do you respond to that belief?
Well, rumors can be there and the media can speculate on it. But certainly when I look at the Health Ministry and the Science and Technology Ministry, let me be honest, the way if India has to move in a different league, Science and Technology Ministry will be definitely playing a more important role. I don't say the Health Ministry is less important, but certainly Science and Technology is a more important role.
Okay.
And therefore, a capable minister with an honest, political track record has been given with a higher responsibility. That's how I will take, because India has to move into a different league and not live in 1970s or 1980s.
I take it.
Where
Fine.
the Health Ministry was definitely a predominant ministry.
All right. Siddharth Bhatia, another minister who seems to have shrunk, if I can so phrase it, is in fact General V.K. Singh. He's lost independent charge of the Northeast, which is clearly an area of priority for this government, and he's been left with the lesser and certainly less important Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. Now, has he suffered because of his indiscreet comments about the new army chief? Or has he suffered because one of his political aides, a gentleman called Shambhu Prasad Singh, is involved in FIRs and other questions over the high-altitude equipment case?
Karan, I'm sorry, you'll have to go through the question again, because it's very muffled and it broke in the middle.
What I was saying is another minister who shrunk is General V.K. Singh. He's lost independent charge of the Northeast, which is a priority area for this government, and he's been left with the lesser Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. Now, has he suffered because of his indiscreet comments about the new army chief, or possibly as well as because his political aide, a gentleman called Shambhu Prasad Singh, is involved in an FIR in the high-altitude equipment case?
Well, clearly, I think putting V.K. Singh itself was, according to me, a mistake, because he was a controversial man. He was given to all kinds of, undiplomatic statements. There was always this whiff around him of, his man pride, the man who's, sorry, I don't know his exact post, but somebody who was with him was under investigation. So I think, in fact, bringing him in was a mistake. Giving him the charge of the Northeast, which is so important, purely because he was an army man and could bring a different perspective on it, was also a mistake. And he has done nothing in the last 5 months to, instill confidence in his government, his Prime Minister, to the people of Northeast. What has he done? So I think removing him was a priority. So obviously somebody had to come in. And I think personally, the fact that Mr. Modi has still given everyone a chance, people who are non-performers, itself says that he wants to keep stability rather than, rock the boat right in the first 5 months. Okay. Otherwise, knowing his reputation, Mr. V.K. Singh would have been out by now.
Siddharth Varadarajan, you've heard Siddharth Bhatia say that Mr. Modi wants to maintain stability, not rock the boat. But the appointment of Mr. J.P. Nadda as Health Minister has brought forth howls of protest from Aam Aadmi in Congress. Now, Mr. Nadda was one of the people who was writing letters for the removal of the AIIMS Chief Vigilance Officer, which resulted in the stopping or at least the stalling of corruption investigations. Is it not odd that the same man should have been given the Health Ministry?
I find this decision, quite honestly, completely inexplicable. Not only did the Prime Minister fail to act when there was ample documentation during Harshvardhan's stewardship of the ministry that the removal of Sanjay Chaturvedi was malified, it was done improperly, it was done with the aim of shielding guilty persons and protecting those who were under investigation. But we know that Mr. Harshvardhan was acting under pressure or in concert with JP Nadda. So to now remove Harshvardhan for whatever reason, I'm not getting into that, but to entrust this ministry into the hands of Nadda, who was instrumental in the ouster of an upright officer, to my mind is completely baffling. And the silence of the Prime Minister, the silence of his office in responding publicly to the well-documented accusations that have been made, is something that doesn't sit very well with all the public pronouncements that Mr. Modi made during the campaign and after.
Okay.
This is something that requires some kind of explanation. And you have the Medical Council of India vigilance person removed by Harshvardhan. This is a serious matter, and this is really quite shocking.
Siddharth Singh, you've heard it being called perplexing and baffling. You heard the silence of the Prime Minister after the howls of protest from Aam Aadmi in Congress, and now protests, or at least concerns, being expressed by the media. Surprising. Why is the Prime Minister silent? Why doesn't he clear the air?
Well, Karan, allow me a few minutes to answer this. And with all due respect to Siddharth Varadarajan, I really respect for his journalism. But Siddharth, I wish you had more in depth into what had happened. Let me now correct you, and you may like to go back to your own reporters and find few more facts. The CVO was not the job which was given to Mr. Chaturvedi. It was an additional charge. It was an additional charge given by the director of AIIMS, where the procedure to appoint a CVO is through a panel with the CVC sends or the Health Ministry sends, which never came through. And the CVC had written in 2012 that his removal should have happened. Now, these are all the appointment and discharge of Mr. Chaturvedi as the CVO relates to the UPA too, not to Mr. Harshvardhan or Nadda.
Okay.
Mr. Nadda, being the member of the Standing Committee of the Health, is within his rights. If a complaint comes, sending it to the Health Minister to inquire. I don't think as a member of Standing Committee that can be taken. So please correct your fact, and I do really respect you, but here you are absolutely without facts.
All right.
Sorry about it. Now coming on the General VK saying, wait. On coming on the General VK saying, Karan, the charges which is being insinuated on him for being demoted, if that be the charges are true or what you have said, certainly they are not. But if they are, let me be honest, the man should have been taken off from the ministry. But that's not the case. So let's not get confused and insinuate.
No, I think in your honesty, suddenly you've said more than you intended to, and you may live to regret it.
On the chief of the army staff, because that's a highly decorated place.
Let's not add. Hang on a second. No one is making insinuations against the chief of the army staff, least of all me. I'm simply pointing out that General VK Singh sent out tweets that were rather embarrassing to your own government at the time.
There is.
Now, let's not get stuck on that. I want to move on. I want to move on.
Happen through a journalist.
No, just a moment. It didn't happen through a journalist. Those were tweets sent out by General VK Singh himself. Let's be honest about it. Those were tweets sent out by General VK Singh. Let's not get caught in a contretemps between you and me. Ashok Malik, why do you think that when he was undertaking such a substantive, some would say almost sweeping reshuffle, he hasn't promoted anyone and the Prime Minister hasn't dropped anyone? Surely after nearly 6 months, there must have some one or two that he would feel deserve promotion, and maybe one or two who deserve to be dropped. Why did he not take those two possibly tougher decisions?
There are 2 or 3 ministers of state with independent charge who I expect will become cabinet ministers in the next 1 or 2 years. But 5 months is simply too early. Even people like Arun Jaitley, or when they became ministers of state, had to wait a certain period despite performing very well in their ministries before becoming cabinet ministers. There is a certain period of probation, for lack of a better word. I think a year down the line you may have some of these ministers of state who were mentioned as possible candidates for promotion in this round becoming full-fledged cabinet ministers, but 5 months is a little too quick, would seem a little too premature.
Okay.
And as for dropping people, again, in 5 months, you can't really decide somebody is not good enough to be a minister. Perhaps in 5 months you can decide that this person is not suited to a particular ministry. Yes, that's possible. But you need to give the person another chance, especially if he or she is a senior politician who comes from with a seasoned record in politics and in electoral politics especially. And you need to give that person a chance to fail in government.
All right, the
5
Prime
months
Minister,
is a bit too early.
in one case the Prime Minister could be said to be a hard taskmaster who wants sure proof before he promotes. In the other, he's also lenient, he wants sure proof before he drops. What about the fact, Abhishek Singhvi, that Arun Jaitley, who has lost the defence portfolio, still has 3 credible and large portfolios? He's Finance Minister, he's Corporate Affairs Minister, and now, in addition, he's become Information and Broadcasting Minister. At a time when the Finance Ministership is a critical portfolio, major reforms need to be piloted, there's a lot of possible backlash or tension and resistance that he could face. Is it fair to burden the Finance Minister with 3 big portfolios?
Well, beyond a point, what can one say about this? This is the Prime Minister's prerogative, but yes, there are 3 very important portfolios. In fact, if you remember, Karan, the Corporate Affairs portfolio was created precisely to give it separate, independent, autonomous importance. Otherwise, it used to be part of another ministry. And this was created as a ministry because it was felt that there are a large number of issues there which require important underlining. And in fact, since this government has taken over, obviously that particular portfolio has not and could not have had the requisite importance. I think, having said that, everybody knows that Mr. Jaitley is more than competent to handle multiple portfolios. It's not a point of his competence. Perhaps it's also a reiteration of a signal that he is the de facto number 2. His colleagues in the BJP may not like it, but that seems to be the position since May. And the Prime Minister wants to probably underline that. Be that as it may not be an easily manageable collection of portfolios, and I think it will require something to be looked into, because there are a whole host of issues arising in 3 portfolios. One sentence, Karan. The health ministry is a very important, vital ministry.
Yeah, let's not go back to health.
When you change somebody after 4 months, when you change after 4 months, you are giving another 5 months minimum for the next man to get his teeth in. So 1 year or 8 months is lost in a vital ministry like health.
I don't want to go back to health. I want to keep moving on. Siddharth Bhatia,
Abhishek, we lost 10 years.
No, Mr. Siddharth, I think we're not going into health. Please, we're not going into health.
That's rhetoric. Yeah, that's rhetoric.
Siddharth Bhatia, I'm moving on. Siddharth Bhatia.
No, it's not rhetoric.
The 2 new gentlemen, please do not interrupt each other. Siddharth Bhatia, the 2 new entrants in the Finance Ministry are Jayant Sinha, who comes in as Minister of State. He's a Harvard graduate. Arvind Subramaniam, who's the Chief Economic Advisor, who has a background with the IMF, with Harvard and Oxford. Does that combination now, as well as the fact that all the top secretaries have been changed, suggest that in fact a major push for reforms is likely? Is that the logic behind what we're seeing in the Finance Ministry?
You know, there is always, in fact, for the last 10 years or so, there has been this trend to install technocrats in the Finance Ministry. Mr. Montek Singh Ahluwalia and so many others have been technocrats. Shankaracharya was a technocrat, he's a pure economist. And so Jayant Sinha comes from McKinsey and a Harvard graduate. So, and he was, I think, part of the, he was associated with some funds too, if I'm not mistaken. His wife certainly is. So he brings that perspective. Mr. Arvind Subramaniam is an economist of high repute. He brings the economic sensibility. This tendency to think that technocrats have the solutions while placing the top job with somebody who's a pure politician. I think that is a pattern that has emerged. Mr. Modi has also continued with it, that the technocrats will bring a wider world view and a theoretical view, while the politician will make sure that it passes and muster with the political class and with the government, and to sell it. Mr. Jaitley himself is not your average grassroots politician, but he is a politician and rather than an economist, and he'll be able to sell it, while these 2 will provide the theoretical framework. So I think that seems to be the, plus their contacts in the corporate sector.
Absolutely. Now, Siddharth Varadarajan, Bandaru Dattatreya has been given independent charge of labour. Earlier, the portfolio was coupled with steel and mines and was with Narendra Singh Tomar. Does the fact that it's been separated and Dattatreya has independent charge suggest that you're going to see a push in terms of labour reforms? And before you answer, bear in mind that just 3 days ago, Vasundhara Raje Scindia's Rajasthan-specific reforms have now got the presidential assent?
It's very clear, Karan, that this government intends to make a push for labour reforms. I think the Rajasthan model is some kind of a sandbox where they experimented with changes of a particular kind. And I think that given the expectations of industry, Modi and his colleagues are bound to make a push. And I think this is a clear indication when you restore labour to what it was earlier, which is a standalone ministerial charge. I'm a little concerned, of course, about the kind of reforms that they will envisage when they talk of labour reforms, because, you know, there is a social contract involved. It's not simply a question of making it easier for workers to be sacked. You have to also ensure that
but
employers
let's not
stick to certain kinds of responsibilities.
we don't know as
and
yet.
So far, there's little indication of that.
Let's not get down into that road. We're not 100% sure.
And I also want to say that on the I want to say on the Nadda and AIMS issue, I would urge you to have a separate discussion on this. And perhaps invite an expert reporter like Nitin Sethi of Business Standard.
Absolutely. We may well do that. That's very well taken advice. Very well taken advice. Ashok, Malik, one of the things I noticed that at least 6 northeastern states have got no representation in this government at all. They are Nagaland, Mizoram, Meghalaya, Manipur, Sikkim, Tripura. And that's on top of Kerala, so the total is 7. Do you think Mr. Modi needs to do something pretty quickly to fit them in? Particularly since the Northeast is an area of keen concern for him.
See, there are two things here. One, the Northeast has traditionally been underrepresented in our governments.